Hey everyone, it's Crystal from Casual Confections, and I have some tasty things. You wanna come bake with me? All right, let's go. You need a batch of chocolate chip cookie dough or sugar cookie dough. You can either be store-bought or pre-made, or you can make it yourself. I made chocolate chips. I followed the recipe on the back of the Toll House bag. Stop before baking, just make the dough. A jar of Biscoff cookie butter, and some Nutella. You don't need this big a jug, but I've been using Nutella in everything lately, so I got a bigger jug. You don't need it for this bake. Okay, I also used an 8x8 pan, brownie pan, that seemed to work pretty well, so why don't you come with me and we'll see how this goes. It'll be a learning experience for us all because I haven't done it before either, and we don't have a recipe to follow, so it's gonna take some guessing on our part. All right, let's go. Now I've chosen to go with an 8x8 pan, and I have sprayed it with Baker's Joy. You can use any non-stick you prefer. You can even use parchment paper. And what I'm gonna do is throw a layer of cookie on the bottom. Let's get some cookie dough in there. We don't want to use too much because we want to make sure we've got enough for our layers. So let's push it down and see where it gets us. Another option than doing this as you go is if you want to roll out your cookie dough and put it in the fridge for a while to set up, you can just have pre-sized layers. Roll it out to your pan size. So here I'm just going to push it out. So this will take a minute, which is all good. We want to make sure we got a good base. I'm going to get in those corners. As you keep going, the dough is going to stick a little more, but I like to use my hands instead of the rubber spatula because it's just a little more control. And plus I can feel how thick it is. A little smattering going on. Let's get a little bit for that corner over there. All right. Get that guy covered. As dough sticks to dough, it gets a little harder to work. We want to make sure we get as much of that covered as possible. Okay, smooth some of it out. This time I will use my rubber spatula, just get a little more out of it. Okay, as you see, this method has its own drawbacks, which is all good. We're just gonna smatter down. I'm gonna hit the camera a few times. Apologize for the shaky shake. All right. First layer of cookie. Pause to clean hands. Okay, next we're gonna add our Nutella layer. Let's get a good helping of Nutella. Sound effects are welcome. All right. Spread that around. I'm using a small offset spatula to get into the pan. A little easier. Spread this layer on. Now, we are winging this. We are eyeballing it. We are making this for our first time. We are flying loose and wild and free. So you make this layer as thick or as thin as you'd like. You're the baker. You decide. Smother it on. All right. Get a little more on there. I want to get those edges. I want it to be gooey. Get in those corners. Corners are always tricky. You gotta kind of swoop it in. And edges. So I kind of just try and push it to the side. Push a little extra out instead of trying to like tease it over. So instead of like trying to go. I just don't think you can see that corner. Instead of trying to tease it out like this, just try and take a gob and swoop it so that the extra helps to cover. All right, Nutella layer. After that, we're going to do the same thing we did before with our cookie dough. A little harder this time because we've got gooey stuff down now, so I'm actually going to manhandle this a little before slapping it down. So what I'm doing when I'm manhandling is I'm getting a good scoop, and I'm just using my hands to mold it out of it. And spreading that out in the pan. And again, you want to try and get some good coverage because this is going to be the divider between your layers. And again, we're winging this, so I'm kind of hoping good enough to do 3 layers of cookie here, but we'll see what happens. Some more in. Make sure our goopy holes are covered. I mean, it's all good if there is exposure. What's a little Nutella leak between friends? It's all gonna be tasty in your tummy anyway, right? Alright. Let's get that guy in there. This looks so delicious. Try and get some of those corners. Try and get that guy. Some of the sides. That'll help, help us smooth out, getting a bit of a swirl there. All right, patting out the last corner. Just a little more to cover that Nutella. Oh, I don't even want to cover that up. No, that swirl looks really good. But I am going to take just a little bit of dough and patch that guy up because our next layer is our Biscoff cookie butter. Alright, let's get those edges. Pause to clean hands. Alright, so now we've got the cookie butter to put on. Now I got the crunchy one, which is really tasty. I'm realizing now it may be a bit thicker to spread on this cookie. So let's see what happens. If you haven't had a Biscoff cookie before, it's got a caramel flavor to it. It's really, really tasty. It works really well with many different things. And you can get just the cookie, Biscoff cookie, or they have cookie butter, smooth and crunchy. And it is really, really good. So I do not recommend you get it unless you are ready to eat the whole jar. We had already sampled this before we opened it, before we started doing this, and we had to be good and not devour it so that we had some for this recipe. Tasty ingredients. You gotta do your best. Use your willpower to hide them, because does it pay off when you are able to work them into a bake. This looks delicious. All right, we're gonna get that smothered. All right, so this is taking up pretty much the jar. So now we know for next time. I got a big whomping container of Nutella because we love Nutella in this house. So we use it a lot, and I've been using a lot of bakes lately too. Now we know for next time with the cookie butter, that one jar will get us pretty much through a layer on an 8x8 bake. So this is a good note to make to yourself for future things. Future bakes, if you want to experiment, you have this note to put in your records, in your recipe book. So if you're trying to put something together, a flavor profile, or you're trying to build another bar or do something else, you can remind yourself if you need to get more than a jar. So this looks like it's a pretty good layer. It's not a very thick layer. We're not actually aiming for too thick here. But if you did want a thicker layer of your cookie butter, you would definitely need a second jar here. All right, I think we're pretty well covered, edge to edge. Guys, it looks awesome. All right, now we're gonna use the last of our dough to do what we've done the other 2 times. We're gonna try and get this covered. Of course, as you're pushing the dough down, you're pushing your other layer out to the sides. That's why we ended up with the Nutella coming up a bit on the sides and on the edges. Now, it doesn't look like, it looks like I'm gonna be just a bit short for my top layer. So I'm not gonna get full coverage on this. So that's also good to know for next time. They probably should make a batch and a half. Now what I used is I made just a straight up batch of Nestle Toll House. I followed the recipe on the bag and just made them how I usually make them. Okay, so we're gonna do the best we can. So we can have some bars in the center that will have the 3 layers of cookie, and we'll have some bars that will not. We'll only have 2 bars. Okay, so before I throw this in the oven, we're gonna review. We have a layer of cookie, chocolate chip cookie. We have a layer of Nutella. We have a layer of chocolate chip cookie, a layer of Biscoff cookie butter, and a layer of cookie. Ooh. Now, these flavors will work great with a sugar cookie dough, chocolate chip dough. Go crazy. What's your favorite cookie? Throw it in here. You got the caramel profile, the hazelnut profile, and the chocolate profile to play with. And there's so many different cookies this could work with. Okay, so what we're gonna do next, we've got our experiment, which we've got great notes on for next time. The oven is preheated to 350, and we're gonna pop this guy in. We're gonna start at 30 minutes for my oven, and we'll see where we are from there. What we want to see is the edges set up, which is not really gonna work here because our cookie dough is in the middle. You would want, if your cookie dough has coverage, you're going to look for the edges to be set up and starting to brown, and you're going to put a toothpick in to make sure that the dough in the center is actually cooked and not still raw. So we're going to do the magic of video, and we'll do a test. Okay, 30 minutes, ready? That'll be a terrible transition. Come back in a minute. Now here's the frustrating part about doing such a layered bar. You see how thick the pan is? And we are all the way up to the top. So that is going to take more than a hot minute to cool off. So if you're planning on having a late night snack, it's probably going to be late. All right, so right now it's 8:40. So we're going to check back in about 30 minutes. We'll check the pan and see if it's cooled. If so, we'll cut in and see what's going on. And if not, we'll wait longer. We're waiting for that cookie butter to cool down and that Nutella because it's got kind of a molten layer at this point. All right, and it's all still cooking in there at that point too. All right, back in a flash. Alrighty, so it is 9:30 and I started cutting my bars, but they're still pretty molten. So I'm actually gonna pop them in the fridge overnight. And so we'll cut into them tomorrow and we'll see if they are undercooked, overcooked, just right, if they hold together, if they fall apart. So through the magic of video, back in a flash. All right guys, we've got a slice, so let's take a look. These things are massive, massive. All right, so we've got our cookie dough layer, our Nutella layer, another cookie dough layer, our Biscoff layer, another cookie dough layer. So the cookie dough layers are still pretty soft, so you're not baked like a cookie in there. It's more like just the baked, just still doughy. But we got a really nice crust on the bottom, and a really nice crust on the top. So let's talk about what we might do different next time. For me, I definitely want to downsize these guys. These layers are thick. So remember how we were pushing down our dough last time? So I might actually roll them out to get a better set thickness for myself. Let's make those layers just a little thinner. But look at that. Look at that ooey gooey gooiness. So if you like cookie dough and Biscoff cookie butter and Nutella, it was going to be right up your alley. So this is with an 8x8 pan. So another thing I might do is use a bigger pan next time too, because that'll let me spread the dough out a bit more, especially if I up it to a batch and a half of cookie dough to cover that top. But as you can see, this is part of the cookie dough. It didn't cover all of it. So this is actually a Biscoff layer here on the side. See? And that actually crusted over pretty nicely. So it wasn't too big of a deal that the cookie dough didn't go all the way to the edge. So yeah, top this baby off with some whipped cream. Get yourself a nice tall glass of milk and dig in. Did you try the bake? Let me know in the comments section. What would you do different next time? What notes do you have in your baking journal? All right, let me know. Happy baking!